Hey, folks, we are back. I don't know how to phrase it, because we're having a special episode. It's 4 men.
It's Saturday.
It is.
It's my Saturday.
Yes, we're having a 4 men in anime episode because we're joined by our good friend Nik Freeman.
Hello, everyone.
I forgot Nik existed, honestly.
Yeah, he's been off in his land of pictures that don't move and pointlessness.
It's been too long since we were on a spaceship together, so yeah.
Well,
that works on multiple levels.
It does, actually. On the plus side, at least Eric's character is no longer dead.
Yeah, that would make
still one of my best deaths.
Pretty great. Would make discussing the anime very difficult. So yes,
true. I'm
not without a decent necromancer around.
Yeah, no, that's not one of the spheres of magic I've studied.
You are technically correct.
The best kind of correct.
Yeah.
So it's me, Eric, Gavin. We're joined by Nik, as I said. We are going to be talking about the first season of the Dr. Stone anime, which just wrapped up. Nik's been watching it on his own, and I believe Nik is a little bit of a fan of the manga.
Dr. Stone is one of my favorite manga that's currently running in Shonen Jump. It's reliable. Like I can literally not recall a single bad chapter of the series. There are some points where it's like, that wasn't quite as good as some others, but it's formulaic, but it's a formula that I really enjoy. So
right.
Yeah, I really like the manga.
And the art's spectacular.
Oh, well, not quite as good things to say about Boichi as I do about the writer Inagaki. Inagaki wrote my favorite manga series of all time,
right?
I Shall 21. And
Boichi's Prince of Tennis.
And... I'm still not done hating that series. Like, it's been so long,
and it will never ever leave you.
It's a lingering hatred. But yeah, when they announced that Dr. Stone was, that there was going to be a series by Riichiro Inagaki, I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Teaming up with Boichi, who is a very talented but very bizarre manga creator in his own right.
Yes.
And taking away his writing was a great call, because it's just like, oh, cool. He's got very distinctive kind of cartoonish art that really pops. It really works with Inagaki's tendency to use a lot of characters. And so it has turned out really well. And now there is this anime series, which is doing really well too. It's on Toonami and stuff. So.
Oh, I did not know that.
I was not aware it was actually like on broadcast TV.
Yep. So
the internet.
I don't watch it on Toonami, I will say. I've watched a little bit of the dub. Don't like it, but you can't win them all. So.
Yeah, we were watching the anime on Crunchyroll. The original Japanese language subtitles.
Same here.
Yep.
Yeah, what we'll do is when we've got a show of the week that we're watching, like we are now, we'll have something else like to start the night off, either a show of the week or something that's going on. And this finished about a month ago.
That sounds
a couple of weeks.
Correct.
It's between a month and like 2 weeks, somewhere in that range.
It was right before Christmas, which at this point is about.
The holidays have this weird like time warping effect.
It does.
It's really hard to tell whether it happened a week ago or 3 years ago when you're after the holidays.
I think it was less than 3 years, Eric.
I don't know. It was the holidays.
Pretty sure. Not sure if the manga is 3 years old, so
there's a reason I said that. But at any rate, oh god. So yeah, so Dr. Stone, Nik, since you are our guest, why don't you give us a little sort of synopsis of what it's about? Because otherwise, I will start rambling probably.
Well, the thing that you need to understand about Dr. Stone is that it is the reason why it's got the basis that it does is that Inagaki wanted to write a series about science. This is, it's a kids show that means to get you excited about science and all the things that you can do with science. So in order to do that, you have to have a reason to conduct a lot of scientific experiments. And you could, have characters in the lab doing stuff, but there is another way to do that, which is to demonstrate the necessity of science to the advancement of civilization. So this is how you work backwards towards the premise. Literally, Inagaki has said this is why he came up with the device that he did, which is that mysteriously all of humanity just turns to stone one day. There's this bizarre green light that envelops the entire planet. Everyone is petrified and turns to statues right where they stand. Thousands of years later, a Japanese teenager named Senku Ishigami wakes up in a cave. His best friend Taiju also wakes up, and they get started trying to revive human civilization. And Senku's approach to doing this is to leapfrog over the thousands of years it took for people to get from the Stone Age to the modern age, because he still has all of the scientific knowledge, and he's ridiculous.
It does help that he's a bit of a scientific prodigy in his own time.
He was able to basically keep track of how long he was petrified by counting seconds.
Yep.
For thousands of years. So that's the level of memorization and calculation abilities that this guy has. So as a result of that, like literally all of humanity's scientific knowledge is stored inside his brain. So he knows some tricks on how to get stuff going, but of course you need other people in order to actually do that. It's one thing to have the knowledge, it's another thing to have the manpower, the skills, the physical strength necessary to do all that stuff. So that's where the lots and lots of cast members start to come in, as gradually people get revived / join all sorts of different ways this kingdom of science that eventually forms. And there are multiple obstacles that come up in the way. The first one is the main antagonist of the first good chunk of the story. He's still the antagonist when the first season of the anime leaves off, Tsukasa. But other things have come up after they deal with him. That's kind of a spoiler, but
Oh, I'm shocked. Shocked, I say.
there is another antagonist besides the first one in a shonen anime.
What? No.
Yeah.
And is the
It's
shark
just
10 feet
Tsukasa.
longer?
Different colored hair. It's just because it's different colored hair, and now he's got guys from Namek. So
That's not 1,000% inaccurate. So
At least it's not 10 billion% inaccurate.
Yes.
hey, that was completely unintentional on my part.
I know.
So,
it wasn't.
basically, we end up with super smart science guy goes and teaches science to cavemen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It's kind of a Planet of the Apes vibe, really, if you think about it.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that.
No, there are no gorillas with assault rifles, so I'm disappointed.
Not yet. Give it time.
There are apes that show up at one point in the manga, and they are mystified by Senku's shiny butt.
Oh, yeah, I believe they did that scene in the show, actually.
They did. Stupid hairless monkey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is an odd show.
It has its quirks, shall we say.
Despite the fact that it is this, survivor kind of situation that, everyone's in the wilderness, they've got to gather the resources that they need to survive, and then keep on gathering resources so that they can make tools and build buildings and do chemistry experiments in order to create this, that, and the other thing. You would think that would be like, oh, how are we going to survive this situation? But it's actually a very comedic series. Definitely has its moments where it gets serious. But for the most part, it's a very lighthearted series with a lot of goofy characters in it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I'd say it's a fair assessment.
Yep.
Just a bit.
Overall,
It's also not really cut and dry either with the characters, because we said it a couple of times where we've just described Senku as having like the breadth of human scientific knowledge. He's also very flawed in that knowledge, though. Like a number of times you'll get where it's like it comes down to trial. You know, his trialing and error. Words. It comes down to him using trial and error a lot of the times, or going back in the past and watching him in his old life, learning things through trial and error. He's not a perfect being kind of situation. And at moments, you kind of get the feeling that in any other anime, he'd be a fucking supervillain.
There's also the fact that he has a tendency to immediately leap towards the most complicated feasible solution when there are a dozen more simple ones. My favorite example of this is at one point, some of the other characters, just by like picking up on the like applied engineering that Senko's been doing, going, why don't we just like build one of these giant wheels he's got and use that to power these
Just
things
make it bigger
by using the river,
and then put it under the water.
and he's like, shit, a water wheel. Why didn't I think of that? It's so fucking simple.
That's one of my favorite moments of the show. Yes. Honestly.
To be fair, I mean, again, we'll probably go into spoilers as we start going through, but I know why they did that, because there was other characters that needed that moment to show their development. But yeah, he does have a habit of... that's the thing. He's a scientist, first and foremost. The engineering doesn't... He knows it. Doesn't always spring to mind initially with him.
Senku's ability to manage to apply the scientific knowledge that he has is definitely impressive at multiple points in the series, but the main thing to keep in mind about him is that a lot of the knowledge that he has is theoretical.
Yep.
He's learned it in books. He was a scientist in the
high school
times, and he was conducting his own experiments and stuff. He successfully managed to shoot a model rocket into the stratosphere, which is quite impressive.
Yes.
Yes.
And also electrocute the fuck out of bullies.
Well, yeah, that's what you do.
Who hasn't done that?
He did a lot of different things, but there were also things that he did that just didn't work out because he was a kid with a bunch of science books. There's a whole thing where he tries to create an invention for his dad, and it really just doesn't work. So his dad's solution is instead to try harder and practice harder instead of using the weird suit that he makes to make him good at swimming. And he's just like, I just practiced hard and learned to swim.
Oh right, it's like it's a full suit like filled with those chest the ab crunch machines.
Right. This will stimulate your muscles and cause you to swim by stimulate you in the right order. And he tries to work, and he's like, of course it didn't work. I just practiced swimming until I did it.
I mean, I appreciate the idea, the thought, but but yeah, no, Senku is in terms of character sort of tropiness. He's basically, what if a mad scientist is the good guy?
Yeah, I mean, he's got the wild hair for one thing. Nicole, my partner, refers to him, especially when he shows up, because young Senku shows up in a lot of the series. I think that he's in either the opening sequence or the ending sequence throughout the entire season. You see young Senku, and she refers to him as Baby Bok Choy because of his weird green and white hair.
He looks like a radish.
Yes.
Or a leek.
So, but it's weird because Dr. Stone is a series that I would refer to as an ensemble series.
Yeah, for the most part, especially as it goes on.
Because Senku is like the one character you can count on. It's like, okay, he's just always around. There eventually develops, as time goes by, a kind of core cast, but it's not the one that you would expect going into it, because when the series starts off, like, Senku's not the point of view character in the first couple episodes. It's Taiju, his best friend, is the point of view character. And I'm not sure exactly why this was done. I think that it has to do with Inagaki having had like a really good idea of how he wanted the series to go. But he had to kind of be like, all right, yeah, here's this, much more typical shonen protagonist. He's a hard-headed, stubborn idiot. Now, Taiju is great. I love Taiju. But you can't have a series all about science and have the main character be a guy who knows nothing about science unless he's going to learn science. So
If I remember correctly, when I first heard about this show, and I think it was from you actually, the initial synopsis was about a guy who woke up after thousands of years, and the only companion he has is his high school friend who's a scientific genius. So I think the initial pitch was, maybe it is one of those things where people aren't going to be interested in this science show. Here's a shonen protagonist. This is his show. Then, like, episode 4, it's like, and he's gone.
literally, Taiju, as well as Yuzuriha, who is Taiju's love interest, pretty much get put on the bus about a quarter of the way through the season. And
not even that much.
Yeah, so it's weird because there are dozens of the series that I love, like almost every character in this series. I don't like Mantle. Magma's a little weird mustache.
Yeah.
But he's meant to be annoying, so it's fine.
Yes.
So.
He's not around very often, so
Right. So it's fine. But a lot of the series, the appeal of it for me is just seeing this cast of very different characters just kind of bouncing off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where the characters don't tend to be very deep, but they are very strongly pronounced. So you kind of throw them into, you throw these different colored rocks against each other, and you see how the different ways that they spark and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, so
I will say I enjoyed the show much better after the Senku's initial 2 sidekicks, because that's what they were put in the corner.
Yeah,
they do come back. They do come back, but to the point in the manga that I'm at, they're only really part of kind of the outliers in the cast. The core group that develops around Senku stays the core group even after they rejoin. So it's a bit odd to have this character that was kind of built up as like the deuteragonist just going to be like, he's also here, and he does. But I will have to say it's something that stands out, but it's not something that really affects the quality of the series, because the thing about Dr. Stone is that Senku has this attitude of everyone has value to contribute to human society. Everyone has their role to play, and without each other, human society would not exist. So people who are like physically strong, people who are have strong intelligence, people who have different types of skills, all of them are necessary. And that's something that carries through in the execution of the series, because pretty much everyone who is around gets something that only they can do, that they end up doing, and they get their moment to shine in the series.
They do very clearly, like we commented on this while we were watching it. They made it very, very clear at the start that just because Taiju is he's an absolute idiot. Like,
he is.
Yeah. I wouldn't trust sending this guy to the store. Never mind rebuilding society.
I mean, I'd send him to the store if I wanted him to get me 2,000 of something,
The thing is, if you give him a list of exactly what to get, he will come back with that.
Yes. But they make it very clear, like Nick's just said there, everyone has their place. Senku does not belittle Taiju at all. He mocks him and makes fun of him, his intelligence sometimes, but he knows full well the value of his physical ability, which is ungodly. And
when Senku mocks him, it's very much in that fond, like,
it's friendly. It's like you make fun of your best friend. Right. And in the same way around, to his credit, Taiju's like, no, it's okay. I'm going to leave all the thinking to you. I'm no good at that stuff.
I'm just going to go and hit this rock 10,000 times until we get the thing that you told me that we needed. I'm not sure what it looks like, but I'll just come and get you every time I hit it.
They just have this mutual respect for each other's ability, and they each know what they have to do in order to get by. And it's not even just a matter of like, well, we have to do this or we'll survive, because we see established very strongly in flashbacks and how things are before the incident takes off that they're basically just acting as they've always acted with each other.
Yep.
One of the biggest for me, one of the impressive parts was when just jumping ahead a little bit here, might start dipping into spoilers at this point, but is when he gets to the kingdom of start setting up the kingdom of science as it's been called, and there's a character there called Chrome, who is a bit of an outcast, is a bit of a weirdo, refers to himself as a sorcerer. Yeah, and he refers to himself as a sorcerer. And he's a sorcerer in about as much as, the old Chinese mystic, not prototype. What's he called? Archetype, yeah, from the 80s action movies. He's not specifically a magician as such, but he knows which powders will explode the best.
It's weird because he does it in the most obvious way when he's trying to get Senku, prove he's so great to Senku, because he's like, watch as I use these different color powders to make the flame turn purple and then green. It's one of those things where it's like, the magician is like, watch as I turn this coin from 1 coin to 2 to 3 to 1 again.
Yep.
And Senku's like, so you're throwing... No, I'm not a scientist myself, so, he's like, copper sulfate. Okay, yeah, that'll do that. And then Chrome's like, how do you know? But the thing is, the thing that impressed me most about it, Senku, absolutely destroys this guy's whole career, okay? Everything that he's doing, he's like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, I did that when I was, 5. Okay. No, well done. And he doesn't mock him at any point for it. He's like, dude, you're living in essentially the Stone Age and you've worked all this out for yourself. I'm impressed.
Yeah. Senku quickly develops an appreciation for Chrome's ability to just figure shit out on his own.
There's something that Jeff Ruberg, who has been a guest on Weekly Manga Recap a few times, said regarding the characters in the series, which is that in terms of what defines a scientist in terms of experimentation, Chrome is a much more of a scientist than Senku.
Oh, yeah.
Senku is more of a science teacher because he's accumulated this knowledge through reading and stuff like that, and he regurgitates it in order to get stuff done, whereas Chrome is the guy who's in the dirt looking for weird samples and collecting it all and then seeing what he can do with it. Things explode in his face because he's throwing stuff together. And he is taking what he has learned through his own experimentation and applied it in various ways. It's just that Senku has this massive head start on him because he has all of civilization to reference from.
Well, that's the point. Chrome is the one that comes up with the water wheel because he puts 2 and 2 together and realizes what can be done.
Yeah, he gets a leaf spark instead of a light bulb.
Yes.
Yes.
He and the old dude whose name always escapes me.
The old dude is amazing.
The fucking dwarf.
Kaseki's great.
Oh, he's amazing.
I've got so many characters that I love from this series, and I want to get into it, but I want to say before we get into the minutiae that in general, I think that the thing that is going to decide how much you like this series is how much you can put up with it basically being the same plot every single episode and every single chapter, which is we have one thing that we need to do. And we need to do that in order to progress to the next thing. But here's a challenge that we have to do. And here is the objective that we have to get to. It is very much aware of this and keeps on using tropes to indicate it is aware of this, a video game. You complete one mission, and then the game tells you you have to complete another mission and gives you a checklist of things that you need to do in order to complete the mission. And so the series is constantly coming up with, every time that Senku makes a new invention, there will be a thing that pops up that says, you obtained glass, you obtained electricity, this kind of thing. Because that is what they have to do. It's, you take baby steps in order to get down the very long road towards getting a modern civilization again from the Stone Age.
Yep. I mean, he's basically progressing up the civilization tech tree.
Yeah. So if you watch a couple episodes of this and you're like, when are they going to do something else? It's like, well, they're eventually going to reach some points that something different gets done. There is, for example, the tournament to decide the chief of the village, there,
Yes.
which is great. There is a thing where Chrome and Senku go into a cave with someone they don't know if they can trust in order to gather something. There is when the villains start to invade the village, and so how are they going to get out of this situation? But all of the in-between stuff is they need to make this thing. They need to discover this thing. And so they do this and they do this. And it's everyone kind of doofing around and trying to do science and stuff, which is the entire point of the series.
Yep.
So if you get bored of that, you're not going to like the series.
I think
but
what's going to carry...
like
sorry.
love the series.
Yeah. I think what carried it for me through the repetitiveness is the fact that I really like the characters.
Yeah.
And seeing them interact while they're doing this stuff is what carries the show forward, in my opinion.
Like I said, they're deep, but they are incredibly distinct.
They're enjoyable.
Yeah, and they're very sharp, basically.
Yep.
You look at a character and you become pretty immediately familiar with their 2 or 3 traits that they have very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to see them bounce off of each other because they are very extreme. So
yes. And
I do also enjoy yelling at the screen, but you've done this. You've already won. Why are you bothering?
I have not been present for your group watch through, so...
And there is a point where they're being threatened by Tsukasa's Empire of Might, which is all about, like, neo-primitivism and whatnot. And, wait a minute, you've got steel, you've got antibiotics, a couple raids and wait for a bad winter, you win! Why are you bothering with all this shit? They're gonna die of cholera inside of a month. You'll be fine.
Imagine just like, they're like, well, how are we going to deal with the Kingdom of Might? So we'll just move into isolation in the mountains for a few years, and then we'll be fine.
They'll just all die off.
But here's the thing about that approach. Actually, it has to do with Senku's philosophy, Eric.
Oh yeah.
Senku
I'm fully aware of that, but
Senku wants to save everyone. Because everyone has value. So
I'm aware of that, but at the same time, I'm like, but you've already won.
No, he's got a tube spear. It's really hard.
Yeah, I will also say it is a shame that Senku's brain... It is something of a shame Senku's brain leapt to katanas instead of, like, spears and shields.
Yeah.
Well, they do get metal shields at one point.
Yeah, but they don't give everybody a goddamn shield and something to poke with.
Yes.
No, the best way to use steel is with katanas.
Fucking weebs.
I will say, there are advantages to using a katana in the situation that they were in, which was they didn't have a lot of it. So
yeah,
but that's why you make spears and wooden shields.
But a katana's cooler. Admittedly, they came up against the person who was really good with the spear, so you have...
I mean, honestly, the first step in weapons technology is pointed stick.
Oh no, the guy that we're up against is got this really long weapon. If only we had used less steel to make more of those.
They had some planks of wood so we could form a shield wall. But that's just part of me just having fun.
Oh no, totally. I understand why they went the way they did.
Oh, I absolutely understand it. That doesn't mean I'm not going to yell at them.
Yeah. But like, especially given that Ginro and Kinro are spear users themselves to begin with.
Yes.
Well, Ginro's spear user.
Okay, fair.
I like how his contribution to that fight was Kohaku taking his sword to use it.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
That's because Kohaku's made of awesome.
Yeah, Kohaku's just all kinds of awesome Valkyrie bitch. She's great.
Oh, I guess that we should actually get into the important bits of what happens, because I will say this. I don't remember the exact pathway they get to make sulfa, but so...
It's like the first half of the series to make sulfa drugs.
Pretty much.
And
but boy, oh boy, that's a huge
complicated
win.
process.
But boy, oh boy, that's a huge fucking win. Jeez.
Yeah.
So,
you have antibiotics, you have just beaten the world. Congratulations.
Yeah, never have to worry about that, basically, in the entire series now. So it starts off with Senku and Taiju. They want to revive Taiju's love interest, Yuzuriha, to start with, but they get attacked by lions who never show up again.
Well, there's only a small group of them because they got escaped from a zoo, right? And that's how that's how biology works.
They're fine. So
everything that escaped from the zoo instantly formed its own group and lived forever.
You know, they didn't breed into very large numbers. They're just a small group of lions that sort of are wandering around out there somewhere and are totally fine in Japan's atmosphere.
Well, no, to be fair, we know exactly what happened to the lions. Tsukasa killed them all.
Well, he grilled that pack
for his wardrobe.
To be fair, lions do require a fairly large amount of room to roam around, and you're not going to have a lot.
But that was sort of my point about they're fine in Japan's climate, totally.
Oh yeah. They're like they're fine in a temperate woodland, right? Yeah.
Japan's is just like sub-Saharan Africa, right?
There's so many zebra here.
And gazelles.
Guys, they're just hiding behind these trees. Roaming in huge packs that also blend in with the brown. The lions that subsist entirely off of small squirrels and raccoons, I'll bet that they're incredibly fit. You just see like a lion like crouched in a bush eating some fucking berries or something. It could have been bears for that matter. Can you imagine if Tsukasa just killed a fucking bear?
That would have been more badass.
That would have been considerably more badass. Bears are
It would have made more sense why they were being attacked by a bear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but then he doesn't get to wear the lion's skin as like a big old Hercules.
And also it's symbolic because he's the king. So yeah.
Yep.
So they have to revive the world's strongest primate high schooler. Yes, that's what they call him.
That's what they call him. He is not a gorilla. This saddened me.
Yeah, he's a high schooler, and this is the thing. He's a high schooler that has earned his fame and rose to fame in MMA.
Yeah, like you do.
That junior division they have.
So, well, no, you have to be under 205 pounds in order to compete in that. So.
He's clearly not under 205.
He's made of muscle and punches.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure the guy he has like this big ass sword thing made of stone, but I'm pretty sure he mostly just punches stuff. He punches a lion to death. So
he's what happens if you use steroids instead of milk.
Yeah, but I don't know. He's all man. Like there's no boobs on that kid. So
he's also doesn't suffer from the mental issues you have with habitual steroid users. Like he is cool, calm, and collected all the time.
Yeah, he's just a psychopath.
Yeah,
but a noble psychopath.
He has a very rigid ideology and believes everyone should follow it, and those that don't must be eliminated. So he's terrible.
So basically, they revive Tsukasa to catch the fly to get So, Tsukasa gets revived because Taiju and Senku are getting chased by lions, and they're like, "Well, he's the world's strongest primate high schooler, so he can deal with this," and he does. And immediately, Tsukasa gets along with Senku because he's like, "Oh, you're really smart. You've got these strong ideals and stuff like that." But then he's like, "Hey, let me ask you something, Senku. When you're meaning to revive humanity, are you going to revive just the good people, or are you going to revive all the bad people too?" And Senku's like, what kind of question is this, buddy? You know, friend who's not gonna try and do anything to me. And basically, Tsukasa has had a hard life up to the point where he started punching the crap out of people to make money. And it's, as far as I can remember. Yeah, okay. Try and say this in a way that's not spoilers for past the season, but basically, some adults wronged him in a way that he has carried with him for half his young life. And so he thinks, well, this is a way for us to start from scratch and do humanity the good way now. So all of the young people who wanted to, join our cause, that's great. Let's revive them. But all the old people, they're just going to see the world the way it is and be like, well, I should get a share of this. This is mine.
Back what I've lost here.
You should pay me for this. You should give me this. And so they shouldn't be revived, and only the good people should be. And the person bad is Tsukasa. So Senku's immediately like, I need to be wary around this guy, and I need to get away from him. So, for example, he starts to explain stuff in his typical way when explaining what Dr. Stone is. See, the title gets explained pretty early on in this series. Dr. Stone is soap. It's very important.
Yes.
For various reasons that are obvious, and also the fact that you can use soap to make gunpowder, kind of. I'm simplifying things a little bit, but that's basically what he's going to say. And he's like, I shouldn't tell Tsukasa that, because then he'll know that I'm planning to make guns to stop him, and he'll not like that. So they don't do that. They end up taking Yuzuriha's statue, which is kind of petrified for a little while after Tsukasa joins them. They revive her, and then they're like, we need to leave now. And they try and go away, and Tsukasa realizes what's going on. He tracks them down. They've made some gunpowder by this point already. But Tsukasa is so absurdly powerful that even Taiju, who is made of rock and guts, can't stop him for long. And Senku and Yuzuriha can essentially be broken in half by his pinky finger.
Yeah, I mean, there is a point where they actually come to blows, and like even this is the thing with it is like Tsukasa hits Taiju, and Taiju doesn't immediately explode. So Tsukasa's like, you're impressive. Because we've already seen him like decapitate a fucking lion.
Right.
I think the other thing I love about that scene is because Taiju is who he is, he's a pacifist.
He won't hit him. Even when his friends are in danger, he won't fight
All
back.
he will do is interpose himself. And Tsukasa's like, the fuck, dude? Are you not going to fight back? No. What? Okay.
Fighting is bad! Shit. It's, it's like that bit in the one Bloodsport movie with Lou Ferrigno. I don't like fighting, but I like wrestling. But I don't like fighting. That's basically Taiju right there.
Yeah.
Incredibly strong and powerful. Will not hurt a fly if you can avoid it. And yeah, even when it seems that things are going bad and everyone's going to die, Taiju refuses to actually fight Tsukasa, who has a freak out at one moment, which is really cool, where he's like, I've kind of been approaching the situation knowing these people as I know them, but what if in this situation Taiju goes completely berserk? I've got to be prepared for that, because he might tear me limb from limb. So kind of putting Taiju over, even though Taiju's still not going to hurt him. There's a really dick moment where Tsukasa takes Yuzuriha prisoner, and he's like, hey, Senku, I'll kill her if you don't do this for me. And Senku tries to pretend like, oh, she means nothing to me. And Tsukasa cuts her hair. How dare he? How dare he cut a girl's hair? It's so mean. And So Senku, reacts to this and he's like, I know you care about her. So tell you what, I will let you live if you swear to give up on science, basically, to stop conducting your experiments that could potentially endanger the vision that I have. And Senku has a flashback to basically what science means to him. And he concludes, no, because he won't lie. Like, Senku is honest to a fault. And a lot of times this is used comedically, like, because he just won't bullshit someone. He'll leave that to someone else if he needs to. But he will not lie when it comes to science at all. So Tsukasa's like, well, then I have to kill you. And it really sucks because I feel like in another life we could have been friends. And he's being completely sincere. And there's a flashback of like an imagined past where Tsukasa met Senku and Taiju at the same time they met each other, and how things would have been different in their lives, and they would have all hung out together and shot little models into space together and stuff. Instead of it just being Taiju and Senku and Yuzuriha shot things into space. Tsukasa needs a friend, okay, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So he needs someone to hug him, all right? I can fix him. I'm just kidding. Actually, there are some mad Kylo Ren vibes coming off of Tsukasa now that I think about it.
A little bit.
It's got the hair and everything. All this happens, and Senku's like, well, tell you what, just if you're going to kill me, make it quick. Just, break the vertebrae in my neck right here. And so Tsukasa fucking does. And then he leaves because Senku's dead now. Fortunately, Senku tricked him. Oh, it was a clever ruse because there was a little bit of the stone from his petrification still on his neck. And Taiju and Yuzuriha use a little bit of revival fluid that they got from the thing that revived them to begin with. And Senku's healed because petrification or revival fluid is basically, it kills you and it revives you perfectly. It becomes a really big thing later on in the series is what I'll say.
They tend to not really explain it. It's like the whole thing about it is like the petrified people are literally petrified right through.
Right.
They are solid rock.
They are solid rock. Unless, like in Senku's case, he was able to keep his mind active. So his mind didn't turn to stone.
No. Your conscious still exists.
Yeah.
No matter what. Like, all of the statues in the world ain't dead. But Senku basically explains that at one point that the reason he revived when he did was because he was still actively thinking. And so that generates some energy, which can help to speed up the process. But you still need a lot of rat droppings in caves in order for it to happen. So.
But the thing they work out is that, I mean, you'll notice every character that's been petrified, for example, they've usually got like a design on their face. It's basically to represent an actual crack in the stone.
Right, because it breaks.
Yeah, and little breaks and cracks and stuff. So generally they'll have a mark around their eye or something like that. And the implication is that if you've still got the stone on you, essentially that part of you is still stone. And it's the unpetrification process that it's kind of like an instant heal. It rebuilds the body and then the stone falls away. So if you've got a little bit of stone left on you, it needs healing. Hence why Senku's neck was still stone?
Yeah, it was stiff.
Yeah.
It was established in the series, admittedly.
It was, but it's like...
There's a lot of
yeah.
Chekhov's gun going on throughout a whole bunch of the early episodes, where they will establish something that is totally not important right now. Hey, look, when we Yuzuriha's toe is still stone, but like something broke, like the part of it's like broken or something. That's bad. Well, we've removed the stone, and hey, look, it healed the foot. Neat.
Yeah, that's literally how they did
come
it.
up again.
Yeah. That will never come up again. Wait, that's how we
Senku's dead. Wait a minute.
This is one thing about this show. It's one of those that if you go back and watch it again, knowing what's coming up, you will get so many "oh, you son of a bitch" moments.
It's been very satisfying to watch while knowing what happens from having read the manga. So.
Because they set everything up.
Yep.
There are no ass pulls in this show.
Well, it depends on your definition.
Oh, that was... Even if it was set up, that was still something of an asshole.
Oh, yeah. No,
well, Yeah.
That was absolutely an ass pull.
The gimmick of petrification and being revived from it becomes a huge thing later in the series.
I'm not
For
surprised.
the part of the story that it's in, it is very much sticking to the modernization versus, you know, the nobility of the old world kind of a battle of ideals. The next leg in the story, once you get past that, has a lot more to do with how the petrification works and stuff. But yeah. Or if you read the side story, there's like a robot. I don't really want to talk about that. There's a side manga that ran very recently, the last few months in Shonen Jump. There's a robot. It's weird. It's a strange thing. So I didn't like it. It was written by Boichi himself, and Boichi's a better artist than he is a writer. So
I mean, I like robots, but it seems inappropriate for this show.
So Senku, right before Tsukasa came after them, they saw like smokes signals. Basically, it seemed as though someone was answering them after a bit of gunpowder they were experimenting with exploded and sent up a bunch of smoke. So they're like, "Oh, there's other people, huh?" And so Senku goes to find them. He parts ways with Taiju and Yuzuriha because he's like, okay, look, I've got to go and try and do this. And it's, you guys can't come with me because I need you guys to go and basically spy on Tsukasa. You're going to act like I'm dead. And so he's essentially the only one that you guys can turn to. Especially because in order to get Tsukasa to spare Yuzuriha, he had to also give up the secret of how to make the revival formula, which he and Taiju experimented on for months and months in order to perfect before they revived Tsukasa and Yuzuriha. So Tsukasa's got dominion over the cave where you can get the bat guano, which is a key ingredient of the formula to revive people who are petrified. So that's a bad thing because he's just like, I'll just revive these thugs that I like and I'll rule over them like a king and I'll make them be my noble primitive man village.
Because this is going to go well. It won't
Yeah,
lead to
this
any
can't possibly
problems
go wrong.
whatsoever.
Hmm.
Because, you know,
So-
the benevolent tyrant is a perfect model for government, and nothing bad will ever happen when the benevolent tyrant dies, and it was replaced by,
Look,
Stalin.
Hyoga's a great guy, okay? You can trust him. He wears a mask that obscures his mouth. That's the thing that only good people wear.
He doesn't totally sacrifice the thugs he was put in charge of to test a theory.
They didn't have names. Who cares?
Oh my god.
So Senku ends up finding the person who lit the fire, who is this girl named Kohaku, who is from a nearby village. And so Senku is like, why is there a village? I guess someone else revived, but she's acting like she's never seen, you know, a modern human before. So I guess that what must have happened is that somebody was revived, and then like generations later, this girl was born. So we get more of an idea of what happens later, though.
I will say, without spoiling this right now, when it dawned on us, the realization of how this village exists, round of applause.
Yeah.
It was like, yes, okay, that makes sense. Oh my god, that's horrifying, but yes, that makes sense.
And this is when we get introduced to the village that Kohaku's from, which is, you know, people living in straw-roofed huts and stuff. They have apparently their language has like not changed over the course of the multiple generations from just normal Japanese, because they have like no difficulty at all communicating with Senku. Not even like a different dialect. It's fine. The language
doesn't change.
Language
never
doesn't change
changes.
over hundreds of years, okay?
Not at all.
Doesn't change over decades. At any rate.
So
Talking like some kind of jive turkey.
they all dab, and take selfies. Um, so, and this is basically where the series actually kicks off.
Yep.
Because then you get introduced to characters from the village. So there's Kohaku. There are the guards at the bridge who are brothers named Kinro and Ginro. There's Chrome, the science user, who basically becomes Senku's new sidekick. And then there's a little girl named Suika who has this melon rind on her head. Nicole decided that she's our daughter, so
She's adorable. I don't blame her.
Yeah.
Suika's amazing.
Nobody knows who her real parents are anyway, so she's ours now. So, and then probably the second most important character through pretty much the entire season is introduced as well, Gen, who is not from the village. He's one of the people that Tsukasa revived, and he sent Gen to go and find out if Senku was really dead or not. And so Gen just flat out introduced himself and is just like, yeah, that's why I was sent here. So, I'm just kind of seeing what you guys are up to. Because Gen's weird. First off, he wears pink clothes. I don't know where he got them. They clearly established that, like, everyone who was petrified, their clothes are gone. Like, thousands of years.
Everyone wakes up naked, yeah.
Thousands of years will make clothing disintegrate, okay? So...
Yeah, except for Yuzuriha's headphones.
Yeah, but those are stones, so does it count?
Those are crafted to her head now, so...
Apparently.
Also,
I don't even know.
I'm pretty
I
sure
don't know what those are, okay?
Yeah.
They look like headphones, but she doesn't wear them over her ears.
I don't know. Maybe it's like a bone crest thing like the Minbari have in Babylon 5. I don't know.
I think what we're forgetting here is the implication that the only industry Tsukasa cares about is textile and dyes. So
I mean, clearly
that's
gives a
what
shit
he's
about
got.
that.
He's got a
because
textile factory.
they do have clothing that is clearly textile. Tsukasa's
Yeah.
Empire does. I mean, they aren't all just wearing furs. I mean, a lot of them are, but
I will say that in the manga, things are colored differently. So, for example, everyone from the village isn't wearing navy blue. They're wearing shades of brown. Gen isn't wearing pink. He's wearing shades of brown and white. So you can more buy that they're wearing like furs and hides and stuff.
I will say
anime,
with the village all wearing like navy blue, if they have a way to make dye, it is likely going to all their stuff is going to be dyed the same color.
Right.
And blue is actually a fairly easy dye to make, if I remember correctly.
I had this exact conversation with Nicole, honestly, because she was like, "Why are they all blue?" And I'm like, "Well, they're by the water, It makes sense."
I mean, red's easier, but if I remember correctly,
Certain kinds of red are.
It depends
Really
on what.
bright red's hard to do.
Well, bright colors are hard to do, and that navy blue was not really feasible.
No.
But it's been.
She's more bothered by their shoes anyway.
I don't know why you would say that. Why would you be bothered by those stupid shoes?
My god, why would anyone wear those shoes?
I don't know exactly what their intended purpose is. Mostly because they wear them everywhere. So they're like sandals that have an elevated platform on the ball of the foot, which is the worst place to have that.
It's like the traditional Japanese sandal with the two plates.
Except badly designed.
There's only one plate.
I don't understand those shoes.
So they're like really weird high heels that are even more difficult to balance on. But apparently they allow you to be incredibly agile because Kohaku does fucking backflips in them and stuff.
Well, Kohaku has superpowers.
I think it's a special case, yeah.
Yeah, she's great.
I mean, to be fair, if you're going to wear shoes that only work if you balance on the balls of your feet all the time, you are going to be pretty quick on those feet. So
That's a good point.
Your calves are going to become monstrous. That is true.
So there's a good chunk of the series that is all about Senku realizing like, okay, if I'm gonna make this work, I need people to help me. So he decides that he is going to essentially recruit the entire village that Kohaku's brought into. And of course, they're like, there's this stranger that we don't know, and he's doing weird stuff using sorcery. So no, he can't come in here. Go away. So
to be fair, the other important bit is they're aware of the stone people outside the village, but they are also aware that none of those people ever wake up. So therefore, the only people who can be from outside the village are people we've exiled, or the descendants of people we've exiled, and fuck them.
So they're not good people. So they can't. So we're not going to let you in. So
nice foreshadowing that there are other people out there, though.
Shh. So Senku, you're supposed to know about. You're not supposed to think about them yet. It's supposed to be a big surprise. So Senku sets up shop, literally on the immediate outskirts of the village, because they do have like a couple of huts out there. Chrome has
it's Chrome's hut because they won't let his weird sorcery shit in the
Don't
village.
blow up near our burnt flammable houses.
Yeah,
our houses are flammable. We do not want an alchemist near our houses.
So Senku has to gradually win them over. He does this by inventing ramen. That's the first big one.
Here is food that is more complicated and tasty than what you're used to.
Yeah, and Senku's like, Senku and Gen are both like, this is awful ramen, but I guess for these people who have never even heard of it and have never heard of like, refined grain for that matter, it must taste incredibly delicious. So
I think they make the pasta out of like millet wheat or something like that.
Yeah. So it's working from a disadvantage to begin with. They're using something that you're not supposed to get the grains from to make ramen. So
it does raise a couple of questions why this village hasn't discovered like farming or anything like that by this point. But
they live by the river.
They don't need to. They have fish like coming out of their ears, almost literally.
I think that's one of the points of one of the characters is like he really wants something to eat because all they've got is fish and he's sick of fish.
The gourmand character, and
I hate that character too. I hate him. He is the butt of every joke whenever he shows up. When Chris and I cover the series for Weekly Manga Recap, he's just this fat guy who just loves food. That's his entire character, is he loves food.
Well, I mean, he's got a better deal than the three sisters who are just looking to get laid.
Yeah, but they're not. Whatever. I guess you got a point. At least, no, wait. At least each of them have different standards for men.
Okay.
This is true. They do. They actually all come.
And they all want Senku for different reasons. By the end. Look, Senku's apparently incredibly hot. Okay. They want him. Kohaku is interested in him, quote unquote. Kohaku's really fun. Like
Kohaku is one of those who doesn't really
the best character.
It's more of a like she respects competent people.
Her introduction honestly had, if I remember correctly, Chris and I were both at the beginning because she literally one of the first things she says to Senku because he uses this block and tackle system and a lever in order to get a tree off of her after she counters Tsukasa, and he causes it to fall on her in order to get away. And so she does all this, and she says to Senku, like, I could see myself falling for a guy like you. And we were just like, don't. But afterwards, she's kind of like, I meant I was interested in you. You're an interesting guy. And she ends up becoming, this kind of person who probably is like romantically interested in Senku, but mostly she just finds him interesting and she respects him. So.
I mean, they're very clearly becoming good friends over the course of the season.
Especially because like a year almost passes while Senku's in the village itself.
They do avoid the obvious like romantic tropes though with him. He's like,
I mean, part of it is that Senku's just not that interested in romance at the moment.
No, he's really not.
There is a great moment to skip ahead a little bit, and we can go back to it. But the way that they end up winning over everyone in the village is that Senku essentially becomes the chief by winning this huge tournament. And at the end, it's, because he's the chief, he also gets to marry the head priestess, Ruri, who is also Kohaku's older sister. And so they get married. They get married, and everyone's like, "All right, congratulations!" And Senku's like, "Well, the main thing I need from this is the celebratory alcohol." And they're like, "All right, and now share a drink with us." And Senku's like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, we have to have a big banquet to celebrate this." And Senku's like, "It's way more important that I go and work. So, let's get divorced." And then he just leaves.
He literally all he wanted was the alcohol and not to drink it.
Yeah. And so that's just kind of the guy that he is. He doesn't even think about it. He's like, well, he doesn't care that he marries her, and he doesn't care that he divorces her. And it's not that he doesn't like her. It's just like, no, I've got more important things to do than get married.
Yep.
So gradually, like, people get close to Senku that are kind of on that outskirts area. Kinro and Ginro are the bridge guards, so they kind of get close by just being around them. Kaseki gets brought over, and because his skills are necessary, because he's able to make things with his hands.
Kaseki is my favorite character.
Kaseki is great because how many shonen series can you think of where one of the important supporting characters is an old man who just hangs out with a bunch of teenagers?
And he's not old man in a mentor role. He's not Master Roshi.
He's just one of the guys.
Yeah,
but he's an old man. Yeah,
he's not painted as like a big old pervert they just tolerate.
No,
he's just a dude that likes making things, and he gets to make new things when hanging out with these guys.
The thing is, if you think about it, the fact that I think he states he's about 50 years old. Getting to 50 years old in this kind of world, you know he's a badass. 2, when they bring him over to the village, to their little like hut, he's like bound and tied like with layers of rope just to get him over. And they're like, what are you doing? Why do you want me? It's like, we need you to help us build this. And yeah, Senku shows him the design, and he's like, holy fuck, muscles up, rips every rope. He's like, yes, that's a cool design. I want to build this.
It's a recurring gag for him to get naked because he gets so excited at the prospect of making something interesting that he bulks up like he's going Kamehameha ×3.
Yeah, it's like,
and
hey,
his clothes fly off.
Here's this new material that you've never heard of called glass. Would you like to know how to work it?
His love affair with glass blowing is wonderful.
Yes,
I love the fact that he's like this physical powerhouse, but his biggest strength is his actual like skill and technique. Is really
to lure him in while he's still bound. They start like trying to make something in front of him that they're trying to do, and he's like, you can just see his eye twitching. Like, no, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Move out of the way. Let somebody who knows what they're doing. And he's got that deft touch that you need in a lot of engineering and stuff. It's like he's such a great character. Yeah.
And this is exactly what Senku was like, yes, thank God there's an actual Odyssey craftsman around. Oh my God, I'm so happy.
Otherwise, it would take me days, if not months, of experimentation to get this figured out. And it just allows them to jump ahead because it's like, I can just count on this guy to just do this. So.
He knows his shit. And yeah, being a craftsman is awesome, says the craftsman.
There's a great moment. There's a great moment that happens much later in the season. Because Kaseki, becomes a core member of this group in the Kingdom of Science, because every time they need something made, they go to Kaseki and they're like, hey, I need you to make this thing so I can make my machine gun or whatever. And so Kaseki's hanging around the main cast a whole lot. And so eventually at one point they go on one of their big things of like, we need to make this and this and this and this and this and this. And Chrome and Senku, go off to be science geeks in order to figure something out. And Kaseki says something along the lines of like, I've always been kind of a little bit of an outcast in this village because I was never a good fighter. I'm strong, but I just like to make things. So I try to make myself useful in different ways. I'm not good at like hunting and all that stuff. So I made the bridge, and I try and just be useful so that no one will, look down on me. And I, wish that I, had someone who I could be treated who was a friend like you two are. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're our friend. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
And Kaseki cries, and they're like, oh, he's so happy. He's got friends now. It took.
It's that moment of like Senku's like, dude, you're awesome, dude. We love you.
You are our friend. Like, why do you think you're not our friend? Are we not cool enough?
He's like, well,
your
because you're so
friend?"
much younger than you're so much younger than me. You don't mind having an old man like that? Like we've never cared. Oh,
Yeah, it's
something about the series is that it does two things very well. It has those moments of they're really heartwarming, showing that, hey, as much as these guys bicker because they have these loud clashing personalities, they really do care about each other. And the other is showing this deep appreciation for what science can accomplish for someone. And it's the reason inevitably that everyone ends up gathering around Senku is because he demonstrates to them this is, something that can help you.
well, man, that's exactly how he wins Magma over.
Yeah. Well, with Magma, he has to basically be like, I mean, I'll come up with something that you'll like.
Just like stick around. Things will keep happening, and you're gonna find something you dig. And Magma's like, okay, I'll give that a shot.
I mean,
you better not be fucking boring.
Yeah. I mean,
You
like
little dork.
Ginro and Kinro were won over just because he applied an oxide to their spears, which turned them gold and silver.
What? No, Kinro wasn't won over at all by that.
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
He couldn't be bribed. He's too.
Rules are rules.
Rules are rules.
Rules
I
are
can't
rules.
be bribed. Except by that thing that I think is really awesome. Holy shit.
Ginro and Kinro are very much contrasting personalities. Kinro is very serious. He takes his job incredibly seriously without question. Ginro is a little shit.
Really?
But he's hilarious.
If he weren't the butt of so many jokes, he would be infuriating.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
Yes.
But because he's a big old butt monkey, who at his heart is a good guy.
Yes.
He manages to kind of toe that line. So yeah, literally one of the things that they do is just like, hey, if I put this chemical on your spear, it turns it all golden. And Ginro's just like, woo!
I have to say, I really like Kinro. I really do.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd like him as much as I do. I thought it was like, yeah, I like him, he's fine. But I'm like, no, I really like Kinro. He's hilarious in a really dry sort of way.
So, oh gosh.
Honestly, it was his fight with Magma that really sold me on
Oh,
it.
yeah. So they basically end up realizing, okay, so our big opportunity to do this is to, win this tournament. And also, there's an important thing, which is that Ruri is sick. She is literally deathly ill. It turns out she has pneumonia, which used to be a horrible thing back when you didn't have any medicine to treat it. So Senku's like, we need to, get these things. And the only way to get them is to actually get all the resources in the village. So in order to do that, one of us has to be chief. So they have Kinro and Ginro and Chrome and Senku all enter this tournament.
Kawaku's injured also.
Yep, she is. She doesn't get to fight because if she did, then there would have been no tension
There would have
whatsoever.
been no tension at all.
None whatsoever, no.
In
Well, that's the
meantime,
whole
they
point.
are
She won last year.
Yeah, it was such a hilarious thing. She just won just in order. Like, nope, not gonna let any of you assholes touch my big sis. How are we going to have them get married if they're sisters? God damn it! What do we do now?
I guess we'll have it in another tournament next year.
And maybe
There's no
Kawaku, she's
possible way.
entering, isn't she? God damn it.
So
You people all suck. No.
the main important thing that they create in the meantime, because there are some other things that Senku's making for people while this is going on, but the main thing that they create is glasses. So he creates these, these crafted lenses
For
and
Suika.
because they learned that the reason that Suika wears this melon rind on her head is because she can't see very well. She has, as she puts it, the fuzzy eye disease, as in her vision is blurry. But when she puts the melon on her head, because of the pinhole effect, it allows her eyes to focus a little bit better. So Senku gets these lenses crafted and sticks them in her melon because she likes it. And she can see, and it is one of the most heartwarming things.
Yes. Oh my god. It's so... It's a great scene.
He takes her out to a field of sunflowers, and she's like, hey, they're like, hey, before, putting the helmet with the glasses on her again, hey, what are you looking at? And she kind of squints, is like, I guess it's a flower. And they put it on her head, and she can see all of the beautiful details of the flower for the first time. And she reacts in wonder, and then she looks around, and she can actually clearly see everyone's faces for the first time.
Yep.
And I mean, like, anyone who's wearing glasses knows the world of difference that having them makes. But the absolute wonder, thinking that this was not even possible, and then all of a sudden just being able to see the world and being able to see people you care about for the first time, it is one of the most powerful moments in the series.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I may have had a reaction to that.
Maybe cried a little. Maybe just.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, the little girl's happy.
No, I totally. I welled up a bit. I make no bones about that.
And I mean,
not embarrassed at all.
Moments like that in the manga are especially powerful because Boichi's art is so strong.
Yeah.
And moments like those, it's not quite as good, I think, in the anime where everything is. Look, the anime looks really good, okay? But there's not that kind of contrast of, okay, things that, look good now, and now they look incredible when you have to have that, moment of clarity and focus on the beautiful stuff. So they enter this tournament so that they can get the alcohol that they need to make a drug in order to cure Ruri, so that they could get the resources of the village, so that they could kick over the bucket, which will launch the marble down the stairs. And the marble goes down the chute, and it triggers the guy jumps into the wash bucket, a mousetrap. So,
laugh. It's pretty much exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
So, they actually have a proper fight tournament arc. It's incredibly brief, but it is a full fight tournament that goes all the way to its completion, which is amazing. No villain attacks and interrupts it, which is amazing for a shonen series.
Yeah.
I think that and My Hero Academia are the two most recent ones I can think of.
Yep.
So the first round is Kinro going up against Gaston. His name is Magma, and at first he is pure evil. He literally just wants to be the chief of the village, and he's like, and I'm gonna also get to fuck Ruri until she dies, and maybe I'll even shove her over the edge of the cliff to accelerate things, just because.
I never got Magma's whole motivation to start off with.
He's a dick. That's it.
I mean, I thought the whole point of being chief was to have heirs to carry on, but whatever.
He'd probably kill the kids too if he's gonna kill her.
He's not the brightest.
No, he's not.
He would be a terrible, terrible, terrible chief.
So that fight starts, and Mantle, who is his LeFou, kidnaps Suika and ties her up to a tree well outside the village, and then rushes back and is like, "Oh, Suika was gathering stuff and she fell in the river," and everyone's immediately like, "You are lying."
Everyone's reaction is immediately, "You're a lying sack of shit, and we don't believe a word you just said."
How did you know that she was doing that? Let me think about this.
While I'm thinking of a reason, I want you to think, can you take the risk?
And that's pretty much it. Kohaku's so noble a soul that she's like, if there is even the chance that Suika is in danger, I have to go and save her. And so she rushes out of the village, and they're like, if she doesn't make it back before her bout starts, then Kohaku's, disqualified. So They're like, okay, we'll make sure to draw this battle out that's coming up then. And it's freaking Chrome going up against Mantle, and they're both little weak shits, so they just bash at each other completely uselessly. Slap fighting, but with spears, basically. But then Kohaku almost makes it back, and so Mantle's just like, oh no, I lose! So then they start the next battle, which is supposed to be Kohaku against Senku, and Kohaku gets disqualified. So they're like, well, shit. Then that means either Chrome or Senku or Ginro is going to have to beat Magma, because Magma cheated to beat Kinro in the previous bout. After a really cool moment where Kinro got to see for the first time.
Yeah, Kinro just like turns out to be this complete and utter badass.
Yeah, the reason he's not more powerful than he is because he can't see.
Yeah. It's a point of that. Yeah, it's a point of that foreshadowing that they do. It turns out he's got the fuzzy eye as well. So, and Senku didn't realize.
Yeah, and Ginro knows about it, and he's like, "Why don't you ever just tell Kohaku, for example, that you've got the fuzzy eye disease when she's training us, so that she'll understand why you're not doing so well?" And Kinro's like, "I don't make excuses for my own lack of skill." He's just that serious and straight-laced a character. He's like, it doesn't matter what the cause is, that, I'm not going to make excuses. So they realize this, and so Suika manages to get back ahead of Kohaku, unfortunately. And she throws him her helmet, and he puts it on and is like able to see. And he kicks the ever-loving shit out of Magma.
Yes.
And he says this really badass line, which is, "If it weren't for my vision, I would have surpassed you long ago."
Yep.
Yeah.
Knocks him on his ass. But then he has to go to Jasper, the judge, and be like, "Hey, is this okay? Is this legal?"
Somebody from outside the fight tossed me this. Is this cool?
And Jasper's like, I mean, it's just, a piece of fruit, I don't see. I mean, if they threw it to attack someone, sure, but I don't see the problem with this. But then Magma just fucking rabbit punches Kinro and breaks the helmet. How dare he break Suika's hat? That bastard.
Yeah, he broke Suika's hat. That makes him the worst person on earth.
So he wins the fight that way. And then Ginro. So I'm sorry, I just remembered what happened. So Senku came up with energy drinks, essentially, to give them some, which is, caffeine, basically. And he's, it's passing them around. He's like, okay, this will give us the extra boost of energy that we need in order to beat these guys. And so Ginro's like, oh, okay. And he chews on the raw ingredients instead. He's like, this will make it even more potent and give me maybe even more powerful. So he gets a fucking caffeine rush.
This kid is tweaking.
To the point that he is delusional. So there's this just random guy who has a name, but it's not important at all. And he's just beating the shit out of Ginro, and Ginro's like, no effect! And then it shows how he actually looks in real life, and his cheek is swollen. He's got bruises over both eyes.
He's
one eye swollen shut. Yeah.
Beaten to a pulp, but in Ginro's head, it's basically fucking...
Haha! I'm invincible! Yeah. Your blows have no effect!
It's Fist of the North Star in his head. He's like, he's not even touching me. Ha! Ow.
And meanwhile, he's like, it didn't even affect me whatsoever. Lips are swelling, his mouth shut. And the guy is so freaked out that eventually Ginro goes into a full assault and pushes him off the edge of the island and ring out. He went. So it's 3 members of the Kingdom of Science and fucking Magma in the semifinals. Chrome's gonna go up against Magma. Their solution is to set Magma's clothes on fire using the lens from the
Suika's helmet thing.
Which works because Chrome cries and sweats so much into the lens that it thickens it and makes it focus it. as
Well,
opposed
no,
to
again,
convex.
yeah,
because it was a concave lens and he makes it a convex lens by sweating into it.
yeah. That's such a really good moment where Senku's like, "No, Chrome, that's not going to work," and explains why, and then realizes what Chrome's been doing. He's like, "Oh, you clever bastard! You worked it out for yourself."
Yep. So they're like, okay, but it's still going to take several minutes of focusing the light through the lens on his clothes for it to actually catch fire. And so again, it's like, exactly how much time will it take? And Senku does, he holds up his fingers to his forehead, which means he's doing really fast calculations. And he says it'll take about 2 or 3 minutes. And so Gen's like, I've cast a spell on you, Magma, and if you move, you'll die.
Important note, Gen is a
mentalist.
A mentalist, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's very good at reading people
exactly
and
what buttons to push for who.
Right. And Magma's a coward. So he's like, he probably doesn't 100% believe Gen, but
he won't take that risk.
Well, and also he's worn out from the previous fight with Kinro and what he's been doing to Chrome. So he's like, all right, I'll take a couple of minutes to rest and get my stamina back. And then I'll move once the spell is broken or whatever. And meanwhile, Gen is over on the sidelines like, oh, I can't hold him much longer. Oh, no. So Magma's clothes catch fire. And Chrome hits him in the balls. Which he trained repeatedly to do.
Yep.
And he wins, and they're like, all right, Chrome, you did it. And then Ginro says over to Ruri, like, hey, so just so you know, Priestess, we know that you want Chrome to win, because Chrome and Ruri are very clearly childhood friends turned love interests. And Ginro is shipper number 1 on deck for the two of them, which is one of his more endearing qualities, honestly. But he's like, so Senku and I can just throw our matches, and then you can marry Chrome and live happily ever after. And Ruri's like, oh, well, you know, I don't mind who wins, you know, because she's got to fulfill her duties as priestess, even though she wants to say, I want Chrome to win because I want to marry him. So Ginro hears this and he's like, so I could be chief. So
because Ginro's a fucking idiot.
So, and there's even like a little visual that's like, I think it's just like a part of his brain labeled Ginro's greed or something like that, and explodes out of his head and takes him over.
And everyone's like,
chasing Senku around the arena.
Bag.
I think it's like, I think it might actually be like Ginro's scumminess or something like that. Because these imagines like, I'll win and I'll have a harem and it'll be perfect. And they're like, oh, you asshole, you're just like a tiny magma, you bastard. So he's chasing Senku around, and Chrome passes him the melon helmet, and Senku uses it as a fulcrum to turn his spear into a lever and hit Ginro in the balls.
I forgot.
And that's how they deal with scumbag Ginro. And then Senku's like, all right, here it is. You know, the Kingdom of Science is going to win this. It's just you and me, Chrome, so I'm going to forfeit. And Chrome collapses because he had the absolute shit beaten out of him by Magma, so he's got no stamina left. So Senku becomes the chief.
Senku's like, well, that wasn't my plan.
Yeah, basically Chrome had been like running completely on the adrenaline of can't give up. Oh shit, it's just me and Senku.
He feels relief. So that causes him to collapse.
Finally relax. Thud. I mean, we've all been there at some point.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was happened to me. So Senku becomes the chief of the village. He divorces Ruri immediately, as previously stated. Just hilarious.
Ruri's like,
she takes it in stride, honestly.
Yeah. She's like,
she's
all right,
shocked,
cool.
and then she's like, well, I guess I'm the first ever village priestess to get divorced. Okay. So they go and create the sulfa drug and then give it to her in the most bizarre sexual moment of the series. Why did she have to be kneeling like that? I don't know. So
nah.
Because shut up.
get on your knees with your hands in your lap and open your mouth while I put this kind of phallic object with white stuff in it into your mouth. It's just like, what? Yeah.
Senku's got a fetish, don't kink shame him.
Boichi's got a fetish. He's got many fetishes, okay?
Yeah.
You should see the number of barely discreet ass shots that happen in the manga. Honestly, the number of times that Kohaku backflips, it's surprising that there's no more upskirt shots than there are already. So they do that, and then freaking Tsukasa's goons attack. We're introduced to the secondary antagonist of this leg of the story, which is Hyoga. He has a badass weapon called a tube spear, which basically there is a lubricated hollow tube fit around the handle, which allows him to rotate the spear as he thrusts. So it's very difficult to predict it because it's moving around so quickly. And he nearly wrecks everyone. When he's armed with his spear, he's basically only matched by Tsukasa in terms of strength. Even Kohaku can't take him, and she's ridiculous. But they managed to pull a little bit of trickery. They trick them into thinking they've got gunpowder. Gen was among their ranks, and he manages to have sabotaged Hyoga's spear so that it breaks. And so Hyoga's gonna be like, Gen, you fucker, I know it was you. I'm gonna kill you the next time we see you. Which was actually a big moment for Gen too. It's hard to keep track of exactly how things happen linearly in this series because things happen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gen gets won over because Senku manages to figure out carbonization and refined sugars and make some coke.
Yeah, cola.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, so all right, I'm on board. This is the one thing I really missed from the old world. You can make it. I'm on board.
Well, I mean, Gen states from the off that I'll be honest with you, he's out for himself and will choose the side that he thinks will be the best, for him. And in the end, he does choose, the Kingdom of Science because he can see what they're doing is, rebuilding and progressing is far better than the whatever it is that Tsukasa's planning.
And it's also a big moment that shows Senku's good heart because it's very easy to look at the way that he treats others in terms of like, there's a lot of work to be done in order to progress civilization. So he's working people to the bone in order to get stuff done. But there are all these little moments that show that he does actually care about people, even though he tries really hard to pretend not to.
Yes.
So they perfected the carbonization. I think that's right when they make the sulfa drug, actually.
It's when they make the sulfa drug because they need the carbonization for some part of the process.
And
well, it's like the whole thing with Suika's glasses. He doesn't need to make those. It's just that they've just started an experiment with the glass.
Yeah,
and it's a nice, simple, easy thing for.
It's a good step in the path to making what they need to make. Making lenses is it's refining their ability to shape glass.
Yeah.
And I made them for you so that you would be more useful to me. That's all.
Really, that's all.
That's it. Yeah, not because you're my friend and I care about your well-being at all. That'd be stupid. Shut up.
And he makes the soda for Gen. There's a bit where like winter is approaching, and so it's really hard for people who are like weaving. I think they're weaving gold together in order to.
They're making wire, basically.
They're making wire.
Right, in order to make so that they can run electricity and stuff. And it's getting to the point where it's so cold that it's hard to handle small stuff. So he figures out a way to combine like their furnace into making a nice hearth for them to work in.
He reinvents the Franklin stove.
He reinvents the Franklin stove, yeah.
So he's like, yeah, and this way people will be a lot more productive. It's like, yeah, that's why you did it. Yeah, you didn't want people to be. You didn't want the little kitties to be comfortable. No, you just wanted them to be able to work better. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
So, and honestly, that's a very Inagaki way of writing a character too, because that's something that is exactly how Hiruma would do something in Aisho 21. Hiruma was a complete bastard who loved his friends, but don't you dare ever suggest that he did, or else he'll kick you in the ass and shoot you with his gun. So,
he'd do that.
So they've got to basically make all these preparations in order to get ready to take on Tsukasa's kingdom, because they figure that he'll attack before winter, once winter is over. So they've got to be ready, and they've got to make enough scientific progress in order to have the tools necessary to defeat him. So they need electricity, they need circuitry, and so because of that, they need certain materials, which they need to get from a cave. So Chrome and Senku take Magma and go spelunking, and that is how they end up winning over Magma. Because Senku basically just like, I'll show you some interesting stuff if you stick with me. And Magma's like, fine, but if you don't, then I'll kill you. Goes a long way to kind of rehabilitating him after he was a complete bastard while he was the villain. So,
yeah, that was the thing. Like at the beginning, like Magma was a complete unrepentant asshole.
He tried to murder Gen. Like, no, not to split hairs. He tried to kill him.
Yes.
Yeah. Threatened to, murder and, have his way with, half of the women in the village. He was a complete and utter asshole, and then all of a sudden, like, well, that arc's over, so now we need you to like him again. It's like,
They did it slowly. They didn't just sort of say, and now he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Now he's slightly less of an asshole, and he will keep getting a little bit better over time.
Spoilers, he is still an asshole.
Yes, I'm not surprised.
It's just that he's not the antagonist anymore, basically. So you can kind of use him more for humor.
He's an asshole who's on our side currently.
Right. Yeah. That can be said for a number of characters, honestly, as you go through the series. There's, everyone who's buddy, like, there's Kinro and Kohaku and Suika and Kaseki and Chrome, and they're not going to betray Senku or anything like that. There's a moment where they kind of fake it out, and it's like, well, of course they're not going to actually betray him. Senku actually is like, of course, the easiest thing for you to do in this situation would be to just give me up to Tsukasa, because then he'll leave you alone. And like, yeah, that's right. And then it turns out to be a freaking birthday celebration for him, because
they actually figured out his birthday.
Yeah.
That's actually a really nice moment, honestly.
There are a lot of really little moments. Actually, just referring to that bit, there's a great bit in that where they've managed to figure out how to make a telescope.
Yep.
Again, refined lenses and everything else, and Kaseki's built it for them, and he's like, okay, this is great. Oh my god, you built me a telescope. Great. We can use it to look out for Tsukasa coming, and they're like, oh, guys, dude, just let us do something nice for you. It's not about progress. This is for you.
I mean, they made it entirely because they, of all the things, like, they'd learned that like, his goal, his drive, what he wanted to do was to go to space.
Mm-hmm.
And they managed to piece together that this telescope would be a really nice gift for him. And he's like, fuck. Damn, they've got me nailed cold. Better pretend that they haven't.
So let us spy on Tsukasa's army's movements.
Yeah. I'm going to use this to spy on Tsukasa. Yeah, not... Shut up.
You do get a few little moments, though, like with the village when they do come around, most notably with the old chief. With Kohaku's dad, basically.
Yeah. He's a fun character once he comes around to Senku. There are all sorts of bits because, there's a thing where, like, they need a gear, and so they're like, oh well, Kohaku's shield is like the perfect size and shape for us to do this, so if we were to like put teeth in it, we could turn into a gear. And so her dad is like, oh, this shield, I mean, it's I won it when I became the chief of the village, and I gave it to her. It was a present when she was a kid, and I mean, I don't mind if it gets used or something, but I'm sure that Kohaku's like, yeah, it would be really practical if we use this. Got to use it for that. It just immediately ruins the shield.
He gets a lot of moments though, just because he's this one character now that's had all this responsibility lifted off of his shoulders.
Yep.
And you can just feel the relief in him when he's like, he gets to now sit back. He doesn't have to, like, when something's presented to him, or he learns something, or he sees something that Senku's doing, he doesn't have to think about it as, well, what's this going to do for the entire village? Because Senku's the chief now. That's his responsibility. He can do what he wants. This is kind of interesting.
Yeah. And he also sees that Senku is helping the village. He sees the impact that it's having on all the different members, how much better their lives are. The fact that Ruri can go outside now is probably a big thing, too.
Yeah. Ruri is no longer dying. Well, all right, I'm sold. He saved one of my daughters. I mean,
there's also a funny moment where right when she gets cured, they take Ruri out into a field, and she immediately like starts running around the way Kohaku would, and they're like, I guess they are sisters.
Oh, yeah.
So, in the middle of all of this, because they leave off at the point where they invent a cell phone, and they're going to basically have to pass a
cell phone.
It's a mobile phone. That's all you need to know. You can put it on your back and haul it through the mountains, and it's a mobile phone.
The thing is, right, and I
a
like
radio.
speculate. Yeah, I speculated. I speculated about this when it actually came up, but it's like, honestly, in 2019, it's probably easier just to call it a cell phone than what it is, a backpack radio.
Yeah, no, totally. Absolutely.
Also, it makes for a better joke has
it's hilarious.
Kaiju, so.
Yeah.
Cool, because nobody in the village knows what a cell phone is, and so Gen's like, how are we going to make a cell phone? And then they make it, and he's like, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
This huge contraption.
Yeah, I really loved it. Again, so like, what on, like, he's gonna make a self, really? Which is,
is that all we're going to do?
Which is all our reactions too. We're like all in, like, yeah, really, a cell phone.
I remember you two were like, when he first started mentioning it, it's like, wait, how are you even going to make the plastics? Like,
he comes up with the plastics. He does come up with the plastic.
Because we all forgot about Bakelite.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I remembered Bakelite. I just vaguely was confusing it with vulcanized rubber. I was like, where the fuck are you going to get the rubber to make Bakelite? It's like, oh.
The best part about that whole thing with the ring is like, yes, we've made a cell phone. Great. Now we can do. Well, we can. Yeah. When we make another.
Because they've been laboring for months to make this thing, and he's like, we need a second one. And so immediately Gen's like, you didn't tell them that because you know that they would have made it. It's great that one of my favorite things in the series is whenever they have to make a new thing, Senku will basically start to explain the process, and he'll be surrounded by the core group of people that help him make stuff. So that Kohaku's there, Suika's there, Chrome is there, and he knows a little bit. Kaseki is there, and he knows how to put stuff together. Then there's Gen there, who's the only person with modern knowledge in the entire village besides Senku. And so you get, everyone reacting like, what is a cell phone? And he's like, how are we going to make that?
I like you do get the different reactions. It's like, it's not the whole like Senku explains something, everyone goes, huh? It's like, no. It's like,
they all get it
has that reaction. Yeah. Chrome is like, okay, well, I understand the science of what he's saying. Kaseki's like, oh, okay, I understand the engineering of what he's saying.
Kohaku's like, I got no idea.
Gen is like, I understand the concept of what he's saying, and between them, they all get the idea.
I also do like Kohaku's like, yeah, I don't understand what he's saying, but I trust him, and if he needs my help, I know that he knows that that if I can do something helpful, he'll tell me.
Yeah.
She's a bit like Taiju in terms of the fact that she has no scientific knowledge, but she is an incredibly physically gifted person.
Yep.
I mean, she's physically different in a completely different way, which is important because I like that. Again, there's no unnecessary characters in terms of what they actually do in the series.
Nick, did your microphone suddenly end up across the room?
I think that my mic got disconnected and I need to fix it.
Discord!
Yeah, it actually got dislodged, so yeah, I need to fix that. So
Uno momento.
Uno momento.
Okay, it made a beep like it connected again. I just have to wait for it to actually show up in one of my options. For Discord. So.
And there we are.
There we
There we
go.
Well, no, that's
Okay.
my headset mic still.
Okay.
But,
God damn it! How many microphones do you have?
But it's better than having the mic up by my ear as
Fair.
opposed to.
Yeah, I suppose.
I don't know if this is actually going to come back on.
Well, your volume is good right now, so.
Yeah, it's actually
Yeah.
not too bad right now.
It'll be fine over Skype, or rather over Discord anyway.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what happens in the season in terms of the timeline that's going on. But there's a very important thing that happens right in the middle of this.
Yes.
Which is a flashback that explains why the village exists.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's revealed just after the tournament arc, the name of the village,
which is Ishigami Village, which we basically learned Senku's family name at like almost the same time is Ishigami.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out Senku was fascinated by space when he was a kid, to the point where literally like in class, when they were like 7 or something, he was like, I'm going to space. And the teacher's like, oh, that's a wonderful goal to have. I'm sure that if you study hard and work towards it, you can, become an astronaut one day. And Senku's like, no, I'm going to space right now.
Just tomorrow. I've got a plan.
I've got a model rocket. It'll get me up there. But his father, Byakuya, not that one, wanted to become an astronaut, and there was this whole process whereby a civilian could become an astronaut, and so he worked hard towards it, and he broke his freaking back, figuratively speaking, trying to accomplish this. Senku believed in it so much, and eventually he did become an astronaut, and we see a lot of the way that Senku and Byakuya got along was essentially the way that Senku gets along with Taiju in a way. There's that closeness there, but Senku is being Senku while it's going on, and Byakuya is operating at a completely different level, despite getting to become an astronaut, which you have to do a lot in order to become.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Byakuya ended up getting to go to the International Space Station with 5 other people, and they were on the space station when the petrification incident occurred. So it enveloped the entire globe, but they were up in space, and so they didn't get petrified. So they ended up making their way back to Earth. They had no way of getting people freed from the stone, so instead they were like, well, we're here. And they began to essentially repopulate, and their descendants ended up becoming the village as Senku finds it. And there was a lot of purpose to this, because Byakuya realized that he had so much faith in his son, like, one day my son's going to wake up from this, and he's going to need people to help him when he does. So,
he does say a number of times, like, if anyone on that planet is actually going to wake up from this and sort things out, it's going to be Senku.
He'll be my boy. Not related by blood, by the way.
No, Senku's adopted.
Yeah, they make that very clear for reasons which you can kind of work out.
Well, Senku said it's weird because they come up with a problem and then they double subvert it.
Yes.
Which is, we have kind of ship teased Senku with Ruri, with Kohaku, and with these 3 nameless girls. They're not nameless, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird if he's like their great granduncle. But Senku's like, oh, actually, I'm not related to Byakuya by blood. I'm adopted. So like, oh, okay. So
it's just coincidence that I look exactly like him.
And we
It's
both have
weird.
the same hair gradient in our hair.
Yeah, it's weird. But I'm sure that there's a reason behind it. I still don't know why that was established yet.
It feels like something they did afterwards and just changed it to, like, added that line. It's like he is Senku's dad, but they've added this line where he's not.
Well, the only hint as to who Senku's real parents are is that they were family friends of Byakuya. They were close friends of his.
Yep.
There's been no explanation of who they actually were. So it's entirely possible that that's not important, and it's entirely possible that that's going to be a reveal later. Who knows? It'll depend on what J.J. Abrams feels like. So But after they established that, it's like, oh yeah, I guess it would have been really weird if Senku hooked up with Ruri and married because he married her. If they're like distant cousins, and Senku's like, it has been thousands of years. Who cares?
Yeah.
He's right. They do actually cover that. They do actually cover that. So yeah.
We are separated by so many generations. It doesn't matter at this point.
Like,
I will say, like I said earlier, though, the whole thing about the ISS is both genius, just didn't occur at the time, and fucking terrifying when you think of it.
mm-hmm.
Imagine being up on the ISS and Earth goes dark.
Yeah.
Well, because they aren't getting communications, and they have to like pull some hacks in order to look at security camera feeds and see everyone frozen and stuff. And they have there's this whole panic of, what do we do? Maybe we should wait to get help. No, we can't do that. We have to be the ones to take action because it's possible we're the only ones who were left and we're humanity's last hope.
One of the crew is a civilian, the other is a celebrity that went up for publicity.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, there's only actually 4 capable scientists. I mean, his dad's okay. He knows a bit. But he's not an actual, he's not an actual scientist.
No.
The other 4 on the ISS are.
His knowledge of science is entirely secondhand from hearing Senku talk about it and from buying him lots of science stuff.
Yeah.
Which is pretty great because he manages to pull some incredible stuff.
Yes.
He leaves him an audio recording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's because he keeps hearing all the stuff Senku's going on. It's like, and it just sinks in over time. And he's trying to stay at least somewhere near his son in terms of knowing stuff.
And also, he did become an astronaut.
Yes. Well, yes, you have to know something.
Yeah. You end up having to learn some things to be an astronaut.
And the stuff that they pull with this crew is probably the most just straight up dramatic stuff in the series.
Mm-hmm.
There is a little bit of goofing around with them, but not a whole lot. A lot of it is focused on how serious the situation they're in is, from starting off with, hey, everyone is stoned now. We should go do something, to the fact that getting back to Earth with no help from the surface is a very difficult thing to do. Half of them nearly die because the pod that they go down to Earth in is upside down when it lands in the ocean. So they have no way of getting out. So Byakuya and the rest have to go down too in order to save their asses. And then after that, they're like, well, we can't really do anything. We just kind of have to just live here. A couple of them go off in order to try and see what they can find, and they get separated and they never hear from them again. And also they don't have modern medicine anymore. So they're getting sick and they're dying.
And they have a very limited supply of stuff in the first aid kit in the pod. And that's it.
So they basically, settle there and they start to, have kids, but it's a matter of realizing, these guys died a long time ago and Senku's dad is dead. And it's, an ironic thing that the people who were actually spared from this incident are the only ones who have actually died as a result of it.
Yep.
Except for those cavemen that, Hyoga killed, but whatever.
Oh, and the dude that Tsukasa has smashed apart.
The freaking chlorine woman thing.
Yeah.
I have to talk about this. So there are a lot of anthropomorphizations of scientific things.
Mm-hmm.
Tungsten, for example, because it is highly heat resistant, it is Godzilla.
Yep.
It just is, But there's also this lake that they need to gather chlorine from, I believe.
It's an acid specifically. It's
sulfuric acid.
Sulfuric acid.
So there's all this gas that's wafting out of the lake, and so
it's not water. It's not a lake of water.
So they have to have these gas masks and stuff, and it's one of the first things that's like, this is incredibly dangerous, and Senku's explaining just how fast acting this stuff is. Like, if you breathe this amount of it, you will die immediately, essentially. And he tells the story of there are these guys that were on this expedition, and the scientists
bent down to tie his shoe, and then he didn't get back up. And so someone went over to check on him, and he was dead, crouching with his hands on his shoelaces because the gas was all around them, but it was only at waist height. So when he bent down, he inhaled and he died right there. That's how dangerous this is. And so it is embodied by the gas taking the form because it's such a beautiful lake. It, sparkling off of the surface of the liquid. It's beautiful. So there's like, it's like, the lady of the lake is there and she's all hot and stuff. But then, it's deadly dangerous. So she transforms into this like zombie with huge gnashing teeth, and it's so terrifying. It's great.
It is. No, it's
I actually rather. I think they call her like the chlorine fairy or the acid fairy or something.
They have this bit where Ginro kind of like is fascinated. He's terrified, but also like fascinated by this mystical lady that he's heard of.
Yeah, the reason they give him the golden spear is because it will turn black when it touches this gas. So at first, he's going with them, and he's so nervous that he's like way in the back of the party, despite the fact that he's supposed to be their radar. He's tilting the spear out by the very end of the handle.
No, the visual metaphors in the show are really good. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But then he fucking saves the day because he hauls Chrome bodily out of it by the end of his spear. So
yep,
because he's a good guy deep down, even though he did want to have a harem and take over the village.
Yeah. No, it's the visual metaphors in the series are really good, and they do a really good job of establishing a very entertaining cast of characters.
Well, that's the thing. That those huge like surreal moments, they're there to replace, the big action scenes that would normally be taking place. For every big monster that you'd see in like Demon Slayer or something like that, you've got, the acid fairy.
This isn't, this is an adventure series that is targeted towards, 10 to 15-year-old Japanese kids.
Yep.
So, yeah. I wish there were more that I could think of to talk about the series, but literally all I can think of is talking about like, why I love individual characters. I love Suika because she is cute and helpful, and she is an ace detective.
She really is. She's also possibly part Sonic the Hedgehog.
We're fairly certain she's actually part Hedgehog.
Yeah, there's a thing where she like somehow draws her entire body up into her helmet. It's sort of like she spins around in a circle and transforms. And
yes,
it's not like just a metaphor because that's how she escapes from being tied up too.
Yeah,
she transforms into her ball form. So
she got the morph ball from Metroid.
She spies on people by pretending to be a pumpkin.
Yeah.
Which is also a watermelon, but
well, yeah.
A water pumpkin. Pumpkin melon. A gourd. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was waiting for you to get there.
Well, because they're both jack-o'-lanterns. It just you use them at different times of the year, and Gravity Falls.
Indeed.
Yes. One of the things I want to say about Tsukasa is he's pretty much. If you've ever seen Fight Club, you understand like Tyler Durden has this ideal where he turns everything back to an agrarian hunter-gatherer society where men were men and women were women and everything was awesome, blah, 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 blah. Tsukasa's achieved this. He is this walking manifestation of perfect manliness. And what I think is interesting about this is you got Tsukasa, who's that, and then you have Senku, who is an entirely different type of masculinity in that he's a smart guy. He's not strong, but he's smart. He's clever. And there's that sort of pull between the two of them and like these different types of masculinity, because the only real like classically like macho masculine guy you have in the Kingdom of Science is Magma, and he's a cockwagon. And I was just thinking about this while you were talking. While we were talking about this, is like I should talk about this. This is interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing also in that, I mean, Tsukasa definitely has a point in that, yeah, there are these people, because there is this stratified society, there are these people who can exploit stuff. Um, so his solution is, well, we'll just have a society of only strong, good people. So, but in doing that, it is, costing humanity all of the good things that advancing stuff can give them. And there is no real, obviously, the series takes the point of like, okay, well, Senku is a good person, he's in the right, and because look at all the good that all of this is doing. But there is still that danger of like, okay, well, but Tsukasa's not wrong about all these assholes that existed in the past. We just haven't revived any of the politicians or whatever,
Yeah.
any of the bureaucrats, if you want to call them that. You just, revived all the violent thugs, which is a great, great
Yeah,
call.
that's the only thing.
Tsukasa has this, has very much a might equals right thing. Not that
Yes.
might makes right, but that might is in and of itself good. And strength is the good.
And when we get a look at the society, it's a bunch of people, hiding out in caves with, fur cloaks and stuff. They're honestly probably actually a little bit behind Ishigami Village before Senku came along in terms of what they can actually do.
Yep.
But it's not like their society is on the verge of collapse. Things are fine for what they've got going in terms of their numbers, at least.
Well, Tsukasa is fundamentally an anarchist. He has real problems with the very concept of property and ownership.
Yes.
Or any kind of hierarchy. He serves as we see little of what of the society he's built, but we can infer pretty quickly that people are pretty much left to their own devices and are work together as much or as little as they like. And so Kasa's more of a first amongst equals than a tyrant.
That is what Tsukasa believes.
That's what Tsukasa believes. But we also see
everything
that
is
hierarchies
fine
have already
as long
developed.
as you don't do the things I tell you not to.
Right.
This is what he thinks he's building. But we see like with Spear Boy, whatever his name is,
Hyoga.
we see that hierarchies have already started to develop, and that he's in charge and he has disposable minions.
Yeah, and he threatens them with violence if they don't do exactly what he tells them to.
Right.
So,
which boils down to, sure, anarchy seems pretty awesome when you're on top, but it's an entirely different thing when you're on the bottom. Because there will be a hierarchy that develops whether you want it to or not.
And I think that's honestly a big thing that is core to the series, is that yes, there is a battle, there is a war going on between Senku and Tsukasa's groups, but it is more a battle of ideals than it is an actual physical battle.
Right. No, agreed.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say with too many words.
Tsukasa's goal is to stamp out resistance to what he is trying to accomplish. Senku's goal, because he wants to revive and save all of humanity, is to bring everyone over to his way of looking at things. So he wins by convincing you of something. You win by killing him before he can do that. And that's how he has approached everyone who has opposed him so far, by winning them over with ramen, by winning them over with soda, by promising that he'll show them interesting things. Even when Hyoga's second in command, who is this she doesn't do a whole lot.
I hate her mouth.
Right, she's his spy basically, and she watches the village from just beyond its outskirts to make sure they're not up to anything incredibly dangerous. They end up when they make the thing to weave metal in order to make wires, they use that to also make cotton candy, and so he just leaves a cart out for her, and it's just like, it's not poison, have some. And he justifies this to everyone by saying like, oh, she, maybe it'll win her over to our side, or maybe it'll distract her or something like that. But it's just like, no, he just want to do something nice to her, and despite the fact that she's the enemy. And so that's just how he approaches things. Is his belief is we need everyone in order to make this work. So I've got to win over everyone. Yes, even those assholes that, wronged you, Tsukasa, and took away stuff from you and wronged you, including a conversation that pretty much Tsukasa is definitely not telling about himself when he breaks a guy by the river, and that's when Senku's like, yeah, this guy's crazy. He's got to win over everyone, is his thing. And I think that is honestly a bit of a naive way of looking at things, that you can just talk to someone and convince them to do things your way.
Oh, it is.
But at the same time, this is a series for kids.
Yeah.
And I think that having that mentality and having that message of these are the good things that you can do, and if you do good things for people and convince them that your way is the best way to do things, then they will listen, is a valuable lesson to teach people.
Oh, yeah. No, it is setting it up as an ideal. It may not always be practical, but it is something to strive for, and that is something I fundamentally agree with.
And it's okay, because eventually Senku makes some really cool stuff. So even if you don't agree with his ideals, maybe you'll want to drive the gorilla tank.
I do want to drive the gorilla tank.
Maybe you'll want to ride with Kaseki in his pimpmobile. These are things that actually happen.
I know. I read much of the manga, and I'm a little behind still, but yeah. The gorilla tank is a thing.
I love that there's a gorilla tank.
There is.
Why is this not a thing now?
It is in the manga.
Stupid, making me read and use my eyes.
Yeah, it really is a really interesting sort of clash of ideals that I think actually has it's got some very interesting messaging going on, which I appreciate.
No, I absolutely agree. I enjoy the messaging involved. Like, talk to people. Cooperation is how you get shit done, and that's awesome. Like, I'm not being terribly articulate tonight. I'm sorry. Yeah, basically Senku is attempting to win people over in order to, because his whole thing is cooperation and working together will allow you to achieve greater things than you can achieve on your own.
Because you can do things that I can't, and I can do things that you can't. So we can get more done together than if we work separately. So we should be on the same side.
The collective is greater than the sum total of individual works. It is basically Senku's thing.
You will be assimilated. That's what you said, right?
Oh, now I want cybernetics. It's 2020. I have no cybernetics.
That's how season 2 ends. Is that the Borg cube arrives and.
But yeah, we've been going on for about 2 hours, which is cool.
Yeah.
We should probably start wrapping things up, I think.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, I do think there's a couple of things I do want to touch on before we do that, though. Stuff that is one thing I want to ask you, Nick, is since you're the one who's read the manga the most. I've read chunks of it.
Right.
There are moments during this season where I was like, I don't remember this happening. I must have skipped over a chunk of the manga by accident.
There were a few things that happened where I was like, oh, right, this happened as they were going on. Because, again, there's just so much that happens because, like, chapters of the manga are kind of like episodes of the anime in miniature form in terms of, like,
right.
Something happens, and then you have to a different thing happens in the next one.
But yeah, I know I took
we made
a break.
A thing.
Yeah,
we made a thing. We need another chapter to make it the next thing.
Right.
For big chunks of it.
But yeah, I took a break for the manga because I was doing other stuff, and I came back and I was like, I don't remember exactly where I left off, and I think this is where I left off. Apparently, I missed like 4 chapters or so at least once. So I'm like, I don't remember this happening, and Eric was like, how can you not remember this? I'm like, I
don't know.
But yeah,
Pops is not a very memorable thing.
But the thing I wanted to ask you, Nick, was how good an adaptation do you think this season the anime has been of the manga?
I think that it has been a really loyal adaptation.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't think that there has been There are a couple of things that are anime original, but they are mostly in terms of visuals.
Right.
There will be a couple of things that are explained differently, but all of the elements are the same. I don't think that there has been a single original bit of dialogue, for example.
Right.
And I think that the Dr. Stone is a very strong manga, so you don't really need to do much to change it.
Right.
There are the things that the series itself contributes in terms of the anime over the manga have to do with the way things are presented in terms of the visuals, and also in terms of making things a little bit more dynamic, because there's a lot of times when charts are used in this series,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be a little bit weird to look at when it has to be animated as opposed to just taking in the entire flat laid out visual. So whenever you get those moments where this is our road to creating the cell phone or creating sulfa drug or whatever, and you've got the arrows growing out and stuff like that, and the Crunchyroll subs get a little bit crazy because oh no, they've got to move with the moving text. It's presented a lot more dynamically than just having them laid out flat for you to look at. The one addition that stands out to me that I really enjoyed was when they were picking who was going to go with them into the caves, and you had the video game character select screen.
That was so good.
And so there's it's listing the strengths and weaknesses, and for Ginro, it's I think his weakness was is horribly selfish. You're a scumbag, Ginro. It's getting called out by the random menu.
So yeah, I was just sort of curious how you felt, how well it adapted from your point of view. Because for me it felt it did a good job at presenting things in a way that felt like it was a different way of looking at the exact same material. Is the way a good adaptation should be.
Yeah.
It's not it's not changing stuff, but it's presenting it in a slightly different way because it's animated, because it's voiced. Honestly, the fact that his voice is a noticeable change.
Yeah, and I will say that I feel like most of the characters are represented well in terms of how they're acted and how their voices sound and stuff. The one that except for Mantle. I hate Mantle's fucking voice. He's so annoying sounding. Yeah. The one character that took me a little bit of getting used to was Ginro. I just had a very different idea in my head of how he would sound.
Right.
However, having learned of something that he ends up having to do in a later part of the series, his voice is completely appropriate. So it's good.
Excellent.
It requires him to have the kind of high-pitched voice that he does, which was something that I was like, oh, that sounds weird, but knowing that, it works better now. So,
all right. So the other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is Eric, you being the animation nerd of the group.
All right. So the show's animation it gets the job done. It takes a fair amount of shortcuts that are obvious when you look for them. But it's never egregiously bad, and it does the job admirably, if not stellarly. It loves it. It's still it stills, but it never uses them as egregiously as some anime I could name.
Well, it makes sense to have a lot of stills when they're standing around discussing what they have to do.
Sure. Exactly.
But
it's the advantage of a talky, character-driven science show rather than say something like a sports show.
Yeah, I was about to say it's neither is it Kuroko no Basketball season 1, nor is it Mob Psycho.
Yeah. No, the animation does the job that it needs to. It has some pretty obvious shortcuts that it's fond of, but they're never egregious, and it never feels wrong. Is occasionally I'll be like, oh, okay, I understand what you're doing here.
We'll say that a couple of times when the things are a little bit more I'm not sure exactly what the word is, utilitarian, I guess. Then putting more attention into the more important moments, that it does kind of stand out a little bit because I'm used to the series looking a certain way all the time.
Right.
So you do kind of have that little bit of downgrade in the visuals because it's not, it's the point where they're kind of saving time and money because it's a less important scene. Whereas because, stuff's got to look good in the manga basically all the time.
Right.
And then you get the upgrade in very dramatic and big important moments, then the standard feels a little bit lower when you, in those moments, you look for them. So.
But yeah,
yeah, and I you could have all Sakuga all the time, and there's plenty of ways you could do that with just talking heads, and occasionally it is amazing looking at you. Anything Kyoto Annie does.
oh my god,
but
Jesus Christ!
At the same time,
again,
like
back again, Mob Psycho again, like.
Yeah, Mob Psycho again.
Any scene Regan's talking in, like, oh my god. But KyoAni are literally the masters of that. Like,
yeah, but at the same time, it's doing the animation is doing exactly what it needs to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
And no frills, workmanship animation, and that's just fine.
Yep.
It is not crap. It does the job. I'm cool with it.
Yep.
I'm just not gonna wax quixotic about it for hours.
Rhapsodic is what you're looking for, Eric.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Quixotic is something very different. You're not chasing after windmills, Eric.
I will also say that in addition to that, the series tends to use 3D animation for some stuff, and it kind of stands out a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
compositing is not the best.
I mean, I totally understand why it's used on certain things. For example, when they make that water wheel, yeah, you should 3D animate that. Makes it a lot easier to do that. But it is distracting when you look at it.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of moments that are coming up in the series that I'm thinking, like, they're probably going to use 3D animation for that, and it's probably not going to look the greatest. But, yeah.
So, yeah. I guess on to final thoughts. Why don't we do? How do we want to do this? I'll start, then Eric, then Gavin. Nick, you'll finish it up since you're our guest. You get the final word as a guest.
Cool.
My final thoughts on the show. I really enjoyed this season. I had a lot of fun with it. It's not the best show I've ever seen, and it's, but it's consistently entertaining. I really like the characters, especially sort of what in many ways becomes sort of the core trio for the season, at least, of Senku, Chrome, and Kohaku. There are a bunch of other characters who are also very important, but I really like those three, and I really like their dynamic. And Suika, of course, but Suika is
adorable.
Yes, she's the best cinnamon roll. But I really, really like the show. The dialogue is generally pretty damn snappy most of the time. Senku is goddamn hilarious.
One of my favorite moments in the series is when they're going to the acid lake, and Chrome is terrified about whether or not their gas masks are going to work, and then Senku just kind of comes up behind him, waving his arms as he walks in, like he's not afraid of anything.
Yeah. But like, as I think I said while we were watching, Eric, Gav, and I were watching it, Senku is exactly the sort of character I like to play in role playing games. I love the sort of manic, fast thinking, fast talking scientisty type. They're a lot of fun to play, and he's a really fun character. Especially, and the other thing I have to say, the other thing I really, really appreciate about the show is how much heart the show has, because it really does. There's a real sort of solid emotional core to the show that isn't obvious all the time, but oh my god, when it shines through, it is just spectacular, and I really, really appreciate that. The music's pretty good too. Eric?
Every time that we
so-
get every time that the tile card comes in, I kind of have a little bit. I'm shipping up to Boston.
A little bit,
It's
yeah.
got that bagpipe intro, so.
Love me some bagpipes. I enjoyed the show. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as Peter did. There were no robots. So you know. No, I enjoyed the show. It lives and dies by its characters.
Yes.
Like sure, like finding out how to build stuff and all, and like the various scientific hijinks the team gets up to, but it lives and dies by Senku, Kohaku, and Chrome, and Suika because she's adorable. But Peter's right. Those three are the core members of the show. They're the heart and soul of it. And for me, it was a bit of a slog to get through up until Kohaku showed up, who is awesome. And it lives and dies by those three. And otherwise, it's a good show. I'd probably watch it again. But I'm not going to like track it down and marathon it while bored one night. I've got Madoka Magica for that. So, yeah.
I mean, really echoing what's already been said. I mean, I probably liked it a little bit more than Eric. It probably is something I'll probably watch through again, more or less right around the time when the second season's about to hit. Because, I mean, I had plenty of moments during this season where we go. And to be fair, when a show's good, you know when a show's good when we're watching, because the credits will start to roll. I'll be like, no, fucking no. Bastard show! More!
How is that all that happened? Damn it!
Yeah. Why was this only 5 minutes? Damn it! And I had a few moments with that. I wanted to see where the story had me grasped. And this is the thing: when writing's done well, it doesn't really matter what the characters are doing. If you're invested in the characters and the ensemble's good. And even with such a large cast, if they look after it well, I mean, I go all the way back to like when we first started this, Nadesco. Mm-hmm. The reason I like this is because it's a huge cast and they all get attention. They are all living, breathing characters in their own right. They are not. Here's the core cast with people that are, hanging on. There's no Yamchas or Tristans. It's you know what I mean. It's like.
I'm not sure which of those two is more insulting.
They're not just fleshing out.
So he died to a Cyberman, but he turned into a robot monkey.
They're not just there to flesh out the world and make it feel busier or feel more full. They're actually, they all actually have motives and drives, and you get to explore each and every one of them. Even though it's only a short show. The writer understands, you don't need to have reams and reams and episodes of epic backstory for people to understand these characters. Like I say, it's one of those situations where I'm invested in the characters. I don't really care what they're doing. Which might sound like a negative, but it's not. I'm just really bad at expressing my opinion. Which is why I'm great for podcasts.
And I would say, I mean, I really liked getting to watch this show. Like I said, this is a manga that I really enjoy. The fact that this was coming out basically made me start watching more anime again, because previously I had just been watching My Hero Academia as it came out. And now Nicole and I have an anime night each week where we, watch stuff as our shows come out. And it was this series and Astra Lost in Space that made me want to start watching stuff. And Astra Lost in Space was I mean, I'm glad that it got made, but ended up being very disappointed in how it was adapted. Whereas this one, I'm very happy with the way that it was adapted.
Cool.
Every single time, to your point, Gav, like every single time that an episode happens, it feels like it is flown by. because it flows so well, it is paced so well, and even in an episode where you can't think of like anything important happening, it is a breeze to get through because, like you guys are saying, the characters just going off of each other is what carries the series. Seeing the core cast, and not just the core three plus Suika. Kaseki contributes to that so well. Gen is an essential part of the show. As the in between of Senku's complete. He's the normal person for much of this series. He is the guy that you can see the world through his eyes, as the person who is from the modern era but doesn't have an absurd amount of knowledge to draw from. I will echo the points of the animation is not great, but it is, it works for what needs to be done. And I look forward to every single episode that I watch because I always know it's going to be a fun time. The same way I know that every single chapter is going to be a fun time when I read the series. And that's really about it.
All right.
I know what's coming ahead in season 2, and I think that it is going to be. I look ahead to season 2 because I look forward to seeing the characters that are going to get introduced. Ryusui and Francois, and well, not really Ukyo. Nikki. Ukyo doesn't do anything, okay?
I'll take your word for it.
And this stupid hat.
I'm more insulted as a Francois. Goddamn French.
Francois's great. I love Francois. So
I'm really lack of Martian war tripods in this.
What?
Eric, not every show can have giant robots, even if they are Martian war tripods.
If it makes you feel better, they still haven't really explained what caused the petrification yet.
Probably Martians.
They have shown something that can cause petrification, but they haven't revealed its origins at all. So,
right.
Martians.
It's all Egypt's fault.
What kind of Martians, though? White
The
Martians,
squiddly-
green Martians?
Well, Eric was talking tripods, so
The squiddly mollusk kind.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Once I got kicked off of Mars by John Carter and Don Jones.
Man,
that's another one.
The Johns really have it in for Mars, don't they?
Really do.
So do they communicate by saying "ack ack ack" or?
Yes.
Knowing this series, most likely.
Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Nick, for joining us. It's always great to have you
Yes.
on.
Fun. Yeah.
Yep.
Good to have you on, dude.
We have to do this again at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Also, at some point, you and Nicole have to watch Girls in Panzer. I think you'll both love it.
Yes.
Might add it to our rotation. We're currently getting caught up on Demon Slayer.
Nice. That's a fun
Nice.
show.
Let me put it to you this way. Girls in Panzer is cute girls doing cute things in tanks. This sounds stupid, but it's actually great.
Poker intensifies.
Anyways, that's going to do it, guys. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you guys had fun, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Have a great night, everybody.
Buddy.
Bye.